What's up, PlayStation Universe? Welcome to episode 46 of PlayStation Fix. We are here in Anaheim, California after day one of PlayStation Experience 2016. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here with Ernest Lynn, my fellow senior editor.
Hello. It's been quite a day.
Yes, it has. This is Kyle Prawl talking to you now. And we're just here to react, We're here to talk about day one of PSX. It's been a hell of a show so far. I think I speak for the entire PlayStation Nation when I say, oh my god, what a showcase that was to kick things off.
Right. I think there was just something there for everyone,
Yeah, like nostalgic PlayStation games, like stuff that really speaks to the heart of the games I love, the games I grew up with, Crash Bandicoot, some of these niche RPGs,
Right.
but then also the blockbusters. That's what really struck me, is that it was such a well-balanced show,
Right.
We had Uncharted and The Last of Us in a single session.
A double dose of Naughty Dog?
How is it possible?
Yeah.
We're so used to going 2 years at a time without any updates from the folks at Naughty Dog, and yet
Right.
here we are with two brand new games. I gotta say though, the energy in that room during the first demo in particular, the Uncharted reveal, was really, really interesting because it was a rare case of nobody really knowing what we were looking at.
Right. It's is this some Tomb Raider expansion maybe? Is this the Uncharted,
Yeah,
DLC?
And I mean, it did have telltale kind of marks that this feels like a Naughty Dog engine. I mean, just the way it was, camera cuts up to this cloaked girl, and the camera is it's over her shoulder, zooms in on dynamic things in the environment. So right off the bat, people were shouting out "The Last of Us" because you saw just a dilapidated shantytown, kind of had that apocalyptic feel. She kicked so much ass at the end of that demo, and that was the thing too. The demo was so long, and we went through it who the hell is this girl? This doesn't look like The Last of Us.
Right.
It doesn't really look like Uncharted. It seems kind of dark and, just... It didn't feel like Uncharted to me at first, I'll say that. Even though...
Yeah, and then when we saw that, the war-torn vista was wow. Because that's something we don't get in the modern Naughty Dog games, where that's sort of
Even Uncharted 4 was never gotten to people are just getting... bombed to hell, you know what I mean?
Just that huge explosive landscape. We didn't get that, so.
But God, when we found out that's Chloe Fraser,
right.
And when she and Nadine get into that rooftop fight, kicking all kinds of ass, that's when I felt like the show. That's when it really kicked off. Sitting in that room, that's when the whooping and hollering started, and then from then until running all the way through to the end of the showcase, the energy in the room was just fantastic. You had fans screaming and shouting.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of Uncharted fans there that absolutely love Chloe, and I know some people personally that were let down that Chloe didn't make some sort of appearance in Uncharted 4, but now,
it's a bit of a bummer.
Kind of a bit of a redemption here for all of them.
No doubt.
So.
A great way to kick it off, no doubts. But then the hits just kept coming. We left the showcase with such a positive impression, and we were all riding high on that energy. I don't think a single person in that audience was let down. And just being on the show,
and there weren't those sort of groan-worthy lulls in it, where they talked about, I don't know, PlayStation View, or hey, we got this random...
I'm a View fan.
I know, but it's not good press conference material. No. Or, hey, we have this kind of odd new exclusive show or something like that.
Power Season 3.
Yeah, exactly.
No, for sure. Yeah.
So it just...
You're right. It was entirely games. I mean,
it was entirely games.
No sales
even
figures?
if no sales figures, and even if it wasn't a game that you were necessarily gonna go out and get when it releases, the way they presented everything was really exciting and cool.
Yeah, it was.
I don't have nostalgia for some of the games, the remasters and stuff, but
yeah, it varies a little bit. I know you were a Sega kid.
Right, yep.
You asked for the Saturn.
the Dreamcast.
The Dreamcast, my mistake.
Yep.
Do you still have that?
Yeah.
That original Dreamcast? Good.
Yeah.
Good, as you should. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't a single person who left that show feeling like it wasn't just an absolute, knock out of the park moment.
Yeah.
It's honestly one of the best, most well-rounded, most the opposite of tone deaf. Like, they just hit all the notes that we wanted Sony to hit. I don't think anybody expected 2 Naughty Dog games, let alone, footage of Crash Bandicoot. Like, they could just as easily have not shown that at all, just released it sometime down the line. Some Vita stuff, which is crazy.
Yeah, like, a little Vita stuff.
East Origin, like this niche RPG is going to come to Vita, along with several others.
Yeah, definitely just huge, diverse amount of stuff. Blockbusters, to indies, to, some of the niche Japanese stuff. Like East Origins, Danganronpa 3, and Ni no Kuni 2.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
And Ni no Kuni, oh man. That's like, that's one of those...
Even if you aren't into, like, the anime art style or Japanese RPGs, I think a person can look at that and be like, wow, this is really pretty.
This looks special. Like, this is a colorful, vibrant, just amazing universe.
Yeah.
And we got, like... I want to talk about Ni no Kuni trailer for a second. Right?
Okay, yeah. Because there's a little bit of gameplay there.
Yes, and a little bit of the battle system in particular. And I noticed, now granted... we're talking kind of off the cuff. You and I just got back from dinner. We haven't, like, rewatched the show or anything like that.
Right.
So,
and literally, it was less than a minute of the actual battle system, I think, within that.
Yeah, just snippets.
It was really short.
But from what I could tell, they have dispensed with the creature summoning from the first game. I didn't see any creatures on the battlefield. It looked like you were directly controlling the human characters. And I noticed in the HUD, there were hotkeys, like L1... was mapped to some kind of ability or spell. R1 was mapped to some kind of ability or spell. And we saw like,
so do you
very
think
briefly,
it's like semi-real time?
I feel like it is, yeah.
It looked like that way to me just because of how like action-oriented
yeah.
and then some of the UI stuff.
I mean, you might still be waiting on cooldown timers for those things, or there might be some
ATB
kind of
type thing.
Yeah, like a wait system of sorts, but I mean it's just basically exactly what I wanted. Like, give me that instead of just the creature thing. Novel, sure, as a concept, but in the first game, I just felt like there was a few combinations of creatures that were just so much better than any other combination.
Right,
so,
and then it's like, why even try?
Yeah, and then you just steamroll over the whole game. So, yeah, that looks fantastic. I'm so glad they was that a summer 17 game, or was
I think they just said 2017?
Just 2017?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I know Crash Bandicoot, that's summer 2017. The Insane trilogy. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty pleased with how it looks. Like... and this is the funny thing about Crash, is that when they announced that at E3...
He's not too fuzzy. He's
right,
not too furry.
That's key.
Because I think Skylander's Crash is a little too furry.
A little furry?
A little furry.
A little too furry.
It's got too much fur on him.
When they announced it at E3 and they said, we're remastering the original games, they never clarified what that meant. So we really didn't know if it's like, okay, are you going to take the Naughty Dog assets, like the Naughty Dog games, and... like really, like give them a fresh coat of paint, like repaint the textures and stuff. But really, what has ended up happening is that, like, it's a total ground up, like, texture, world, everything. Like, the levels are built from scratch.
Right.
I actually was
the characters, the environments look,
I had the chance to talk to a guy from Activision. I played the Crash remaster, and I was talking to an Activision guy while I was playing it, and he was saying that they don't have access to the code of those games because of Naughty Dog. So he implied that the games themselves were not a part of, like, the sale or whatever, like the transfer of rights.
Oh yeah.
So they don't. So they can't just take the old code, the old engine, and recreate it.
So they have to look at just like the old game and
exactly
figure
like
it out.
Look at the level and literally like create from the ground up a level that looks exactly like it. And that's the process they've been going through. But it plays well. It suffers a little bit from modern TV syndrome, which is input lag.
Right.
I hate to blame it on input lag. It's probably not entirely that reason why I played so poorly.
And to be fair, it could be just calibration on that particular setups. And
it felt sluggish, but I think like when people get it in their homes, like you're going to be able to fine tune it, put your TV in game mode, do whatever else you need to do to make it run well. A little tangent there. Ni no Kuni was awesome. I love that trailer.
Yeah.
Danganronpa was great, and that kind of drives home what was special about the show to me is because I play everything. I play every genre. There's very little, maybe not rhythm. That's the one genre I don't play unless I'm reviewing something. But for me, it's the blockbuster PlayStation titles. We got Horizon trailer, The Last of Us Part 2, the new Uncharted,
Knack 2. Mark Cerny's baby.
Knack 2, Knacktastic.
Knacktastic.
I wonder what capacity Cerny is actually working on that game. You know, because he seems really busy with all the Hideo Kojima stuff. And
I guess, but maybe that's his deal with Sony is like, I'll only help you with stuff like the PS4 Pro.
If you
and
let
Kojima.
me get Knack
if you let me do a Knack 2, like, just let me make these games, you know, that I want to make. They're not going to be necessarily awesome or
they're not
anything.
going to be critical darlings. They're not going to sell a million copies.
But, you know, I like them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know that I don't think we'll get a Knack 3. I'll say that. No Knack 3.
Not the Knack
There's no
trilogy.
way. There's no way.
We got Marvel.
Marvel,
Where's Marvel?
Marvel's here.
Marvel's the best kept secret.
Yeah, in game history. No, that was great.
That was cool.
It was. I'm not, I'm not a fighting guy at the end of the day, but I won't deny that. Like,
I think that series is fun even for people who don't play fighting games because it's got the fan service and it's flashy. Marvel is so flashy.
Yes,
exactly. It's fun to watch. I think.
We didn't get a sense if the rumors about it being more of an MCU game were true or not. Like,
it looked that way.
So?
I think so.
The Tony Stark Iron Man looked. I mean, that Iron Man
that looked like MCU, and then they had Captain Marvel show up, and she's getting her own film. Next year, I believe. And, we didn't see any X-Men characters.
Of course, you and I had the prediction that maybe...
it's 2v2, I heard.
So
that lends credibility to the MCU. Like,
and they call it Marvel...
There's less characters,
Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. Yeah. It's not a number title, it just says Infinite. So I have to think that this is going to be the building block for something... what Capcom does with Street Fighter games is that, like, a numbered installment comes out, but that's really just the foundation for the next, 5-6 years of updates, super editions, deluxe editions, DLC, new character reveals. So I feel like Infinite's going to be just... It's going to be that.
It's going to be like a little platform, where they add fighters. And
exactly. The name kind of implies that.
Yeah.
We did not... Robert Downey and... Chris Evans did not descend from different platforms.
That's what I was saying before the show. Is it would have been amazing if we had Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans on each of the two sets of stairs.
That'd be some star power. But, man, people were stoked for that game. The crowd erupted. The cheers were great. Other than a few kind of loud people who were screaming a bit too much, playing it up a bit. It just it was such a pleasure to be in that crowd. The energy was so great.
Yeah.
They just impressed the pants off me, quite frankly, throughout the show.
Right.
But yeah, more nostalgia stuff. We got the Wipeout Omega collection. I mean, Sean Layden teased it, of course, on his shirt when he came out. That combines.
That game is looking smooth.
Oh, it plays smooth.
That FPS. That 60 FPS.
It is native 4K on PS4 Pro, 60 FPS at the same time. And those two things combined, it's just it's unreal, man. I mean, I kind of fell in love with Wipeout 2048, which was the Vita launch title. That's really the only one I've ever played. And this collection combines Wipeout HD, Wipeout Fury, and Wipeout 2048. And it's funny, going back to it with the PS4 controller and starting to remember those controls from years ago. I'm like, man, I forgot how much I love this game. And I'm so happy that it's coming with all these tracks and all these vehicles from 3 different games all in one. I'm so stoked for that. Crash Bandicoot, man.
Crash.
Game trilogy.
The insane trilogy.
More nostalgia. I mean, really, it just keeps going. You had the Parappa remaster.
Parappa the Remastered, which also Loco Roco and...
Did you play Loco Roco or Patapon back in the day?
Just a little bit. I didn't own them, but I know that they have quite the following.
Yeah.
And there's the beloved games, so happy that like we said, there's a lot of stuff there for somebody,
As well as I didn't necessarily think we'd get a lot of PlayStation VR, but we did see an Ace Combat 7 trailer. We did get the Resident Evil 7 content update.
Yup, Resident Evil 7. We had the
release date for RE7 was affirmed.
Yeah, we had Starblood Arena. That was a new
multiplayer
multiplayer shooter. game. The UI gave me Riggs vibes.
Oh,
it was very laid out
sure,
like Riggs.
For sure.
It was like Riggs except with spaceships.
Yeah,
basically.
To be perfectly honest, I was looking at that going, "Oh man, that seems like a recipe for motion sickness."
Yeah.
I don't know if, but as we've talked about today, I'm not quite as conditioned to that as you are. Mm-hmm. Real quick, Resident Evil 7, you played that at the show today. Actually, we both did. Yeah. You bopped in and you played it with PSVR. So I got to watch you go through this demo, the same beginning hour demo that's on PSN right now.
Right. It's the latest update, which you can go and download now.
You're not a big, up until this point, you haven't been a big Resident Evil guy, right?
No.
What?
I've not finished through one, I will admit.
Okay.
I've played chunks of like RE4 and I think Code Veronica I think was another one.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
The old stuff. So, having played the RE7 demo in PSVR, where do you stand on the game? Is this something you could see yourself playing when it comes out?
Nah, probably not. Probably not. And it's not because I don't think it's scary, but I don't know, I feel it's kind of boring to me.
Is it really?
I hate to say that. It's a little boring, but maybe in the full game when they have more combat, because they have shown some of the gameplay video.
Yeah,
like
first-person gunplay. Do you scare easily when it comes to video games?
I don't think so.
Really?
I think less than other forms of media.
Interesting, because I'm one of these suckers that gets really wrapped into it. Like I'll get halfway through PT or halfway through Amnesia or something, and I just I almost have to stop because the terror I feel looking around every corner is just too much to bear. So.
I think one game that I do remember was the original BioShock, and playing that with surround sound, and the sound design is really good in that game. And just hearing just the
shrieks and wails of the raptured inhabitants.
Yep. All the splicers. Just
I like that we got more of this somewhat recent Sony trend of dropping content like now, like simultaneously.
Yes.
Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 available now. Let It Die free available now, right? That game's just free.
Yeah.
Did I hear that right?
It is free to play.
Free.
So
it was built that way from the beginning. Okay.
You're correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, like,
talk about a wacko-looking game, by the way.
It's so weird. Yeah, just being like, hey, it's available now, or it's just around the corner. Just having that stuff that is readily available, and so people aren't like, oh, the stuff we're looking at is just years down the line. That's not necessarily the case.
Right.
They showed us a new trailer for Last Guardian, for example. And you've played it, so
I have. This podcast should be up before my review. The review will be on PSU.com Monday morning. I'll just say this: seeing that trailer, having played the game, meant that the context of that trailer, which was meant to hype everyone else, was like me reopening that book, like just flipping back through the pages of that journey, and man, that was a moment. That was a moment. I don't know that I can actually say much more than that
without spoiling.
Yeah, exactly. Or breaking embargo.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about it though. Like, it was a hell of a show all around. Where do you rank it in the pantheon of PlayStation press conferences? Because it is hard to beat the
Holy Trinity,
the FF15, the Last Guardian, FF7 remake,
Last Guardian, Shenmue 3.
And Shenmue 3. It's
yeah. I mean, I was
is anything
I was
ever
getting
going to
really Kyle knows I was getting really emotional. I was in tears. I was like screaming, literally screaming. Yeah, I mean, you've got that one, and then you've also got the 2013 before the PS4 launched.
That's right.
They just
the price drop, the mic drop moment.
Yeah, they just had the price. They had no online required. No blocking of used games, just beating
games,
beating Microsoft on every front that year.
Exactly,
and that was incredible. So
I mean, this is it's tough because I feel like every time we see one, we're always like they haven't had a poor showing or a mismanaged showing or poor messaging in years. It has been years since Sony
didn't in some way, shape, or form knock it out of the park for somebody. Like maybe you would go into a show and you wouldn't get the Vita games you wanted to see, you wouldn't get the RPGs you wanted to see, whatever. But maybe that's why this one stands out to me as probably like, it's almost called the best show for like the PlayStation faithful. Like if you're somebody who's been playing since PS1 days and you know all these brands, you know all these characters, then it's got to be like just incredible to get your blockbuster entertainment here from those franchises: Uncharted, The Last of Us, Horizon. But then Crash is back, Parappa is back.
Do you think this press conference was better than the E3 2016 press conference? This year's E3 press conference. I think it's close. I think they might be I would maybe put them at least about even. You know,
I'd maybe give the edge to this one. Actually,
I would give it to this one.
Yeah.
Yes, earlier this year we got that fantastic looking God of War demo. Crash
Death Stranding made its debut.
Death Stranding made its debut. Crash was revealed at that one.
That's true. I mean, at this point, we actually, we knew Crash was coming, so it wasn't a super big surprise. But yeah.
I mean, this one, I mean, you had a lot of reveals. The two Naughty Dog games, Uncharted, Lost Legacy.
That's true.
Last of Us 2.
Those together kind of...
I mean, that's already just... Boom!
Yeah. The knockout moment. I mean, yeah, those two together, for me, kind of like, if you want to compare conference to conference and like a report card, I mean, Uncharted, The Lost Legacy, The Last of Us Part 2, that's easily like a God of War, Death Stranding combo in my mind, Like that, like those are kind of equatable. So then, if you look at the other things in between, we didn't get, which is a good thing. We didn't get the typical like, we're proud of our partnership with Star Wars and EA, or we're proud of this and the other.
Right.
A little bit with Destiny, like
a little bit with Destiny, and they briefly mentioned like the Call of Duty World League, but not for too long.
No, I mean
they didn't dwell on it.
Right, both combined, those both probably took 5 minutes or 6 minutes out of the show, so definitely didn't drag it down in any way. And as much as it baffles me, there's so many people that play Destiny still to this day.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense. Like, yes, they have to show that, and at least it was cool to see. I don't regularly play Destiny, but I'm like, hey, this content looks cool.
To me, this is just like, this is kind of more of a personal anecdote too, but I'm just really riding high on PlayStation right now. Like, I feel like this is a great time. It's just been a really energizing time to be a PlayStation gamer. Between, Final Fantasy 15 is a big part of it, just that game's existence. Granted, it's on both, but like, I'm just so into being a PlayStation gamer right now, and this conference just helped
solidify
push that to the next level. Like, it just, I went in already feeling energetic, and then got so many reminders of why I play games on PlayStation, why, my PS4 purchase was a great one, why my Vita purchase was a great one. Yeah. Just all these signs that you've got a company that really...
We've got all these exclusives, and, some of them are system sellers for some people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I shared the Last of Us 2 reveal trailer on my Facebook, and one of my friends said, I am getting a PS4.
I know, it's crazy,
game,
isn't it? And it's easy to forget that sometimes because we're such enthusiasts. I mean, we are like the day one purchasers.
Right, we're there.
But there are people who haven't upgraded yet who loved The Last of Us to death. And so for that reason, the conference is top marks in my book because it just hit every note. Every kind of PlayStation fan had something there that they love, whether it was fighting games, shooters, VR was represented. If you care,
I would say this press conference, and I think also past PSX ones, had more stuff to appeal to fans of Japanese games than the E3.
I agree.
I think the E3 ones tend to skew focusing on a lot of the Western titles and Western appeal. Meanwhile, like PSX last year, we had Kuni reveal and some other Japanese games showcased.
We had Squared reveal the FF7 PC port,
right, for PS4,
which birthed the incredible Shinji Hashimoto just leans back laughing.
Just
but incredible.
Today's we had more Ni no Kuni 2.
Yeah, you're right.
Yakuza.
Yeah.
Kiwami, which is the remaster of the first game and 6 both showed footage. Both are now confirmed for Western release.
Just
Danganronpa, Ys, just all this
and
stuff.
And you can't necessarily bring Ys, Danganronpa, Koni can excel anywhere, but like there's games in there that you just don't show on an E3 stage because it's so commercial and it's so like investors and stockholders watching.
Yeah, they're watching it. You got just the world's eye looking on that stuff. So
and it's cool because the PlayStation bigwigs, I mean, they treat it more informally. You see them step on stage when, like, Sean Layden's just in, like, a t-shirt and jeans.
Right. Gio Corsi comes out in his signature
always,
jersey.
Yep, no doubt.
And he's just there speaking to the fans directly, but saying, like, hey, I've listened to your requests, and here are some of them.
Building the list.
Yeah.
And
we're getting some of that stuff crossed off the list.
Exactly.
So.
Including Windjammers, which, full disclosure, that's a curveball to me. I have no idea where the Windjammers hype was coming from. If you're listening to this and you are stoked beyond belief for Windjammers...
Game looks fun. I'll admit that. Like,
no,
I'll give it a shot.
Tell me more about it, please.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know why it's so exciting.
Yep.
But you're right. I mean, they really, like, the building the list moments... That's great because the Vita, unfortunately, also is not suited for E3 conferences. So this is its moment to shine.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about now. So at the end of the day, it seems like we both rank this showcase among the best we've seen.
Yeah,
right? Fair to say.
Yeah, I think that would be fair to say.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to. I mean, it's going to take some stuff to match that the trifecta, the FF7 remake, Last Guardian, Shenmue. That's out of this world. But for me,
this was really good.
Yeah, PSX 16 is marked by just this incredible presentation.
Yeah.
But that was only one part of our day because immediately after the show, everyone disperses, and just to give the viewers kind of listeners behind the scenes at the show floor, like when you watch that live stream online of the showcase. That's all happening in this massive Anaheim Convention Center, this massive ballroom. And then behind all that is just this open show floor, right? Booths of games just stretch for what feels like a mile. Sony's got all of its first-party stuff. And
it's really a mini E3.
It really is a mini E3,
it's a
except
mini E3.
Even better, as we were talking about, because it's a bit... the venue's large, but the crowds are less. It feels busy and
shorter
thriving.
lines.
Shorter
awesome.
lines. You can move around. What's great is that the fans get to be there. I mean, we walked up to the convention center to get in line for media seats, and Sony was just throwing PS4 games at the crowd. I couldn't believe that. It just slapped the biggest smile across my face. But we did have a chance to play some stuff, throughout the day. Tell me a little bit, because we were separate for a while because you were checking out the panels.
Yeah, most of the day I was actually on panel duty.
So give me the panel recap. I mean, I know some of it from what you've told me, but like, what moments of the panels really stood out to you?
So they kicked it off with the Uncharted Lost Legacy panel, and just getting to hear more about what that game's going to be like. Mm-hmm. So some big things were that it is less like your shorter DLC, story chapter, and more of a standalone, a little bit beefier game, they said.
Sure.
So it's going to be, for those of that played the Last of Us story DLC Left Behind, they did say it's going to be longer than that. And later today, we found out that it's going to get its own physical release.
Yeah,
no price point yet, but
no. But we were thinking. I mean, like $30 feels right for a game like this, where it sounds a bit meatier, but it clearly isn't like a full 15-hour, Naughty Dog adventure. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But that's super cool to hear that it's getting a physical release.
Yeah, we had, Chloe and Dean are going to be the focus.
Yep.
For the characters, and they had both of the respective voice actresses.
Yeah, Claudia Black and
Laura Bailey.
Yes.
Yep. And they were just, getting to hear their experiences and what they liked about their characters. They had fun up there on
Which is always cool. I mean, as much as I do think that we see or hear rather the same like 5 or 6 people in video game voice acting sometimes, it's those moments like the panels are cool because you do get to see that they care so deeply about their craft.
Yeah.
And again, like the fans, with the show being all about the fans, they would rarely, if ever, get a chance to be so close to these, in their world, celebrities. I mean, these guys are celebrities to PlayStation fans like us, so
yeah,
it's so cool to have them be so close and giving people access like that.
Yep. The whole Lost Legacy, that's going to be set in India, which, a lot of people saw that what they showed today was set in India.
War-torn India.
War-torn India. The story, like Uncharted 4, is going to be more grounded in reality, and that dynamic between Cloney and Nadine is going to be the focus of the story, and really the highlight. So that was most of this, the main stuff from the Lost Legacy panel. After that was Kojima Productions and Death Stranding. And I just saw even more people get ushered into the main stage room.
Awesome. That game is going to be so hyped.
Yeah, and we got to find out a lot of info.
Yeah, it seems
about that game.
So the thing that really, from the trailer released during the Game Awards, Decima. The Decima logo is what really stood out to people, I think, or as an unsolved mystery that didn't have answers yet.
Right, because that's something we just had never seen before.
But we learned that Decima is the Guerrilla Games engine that they've been using since the Killzone days, and have just now assigned a new symbolic name that means some things. Yep. And Hideo Kojima, that's his engine. That's what he's decided.
So now that what it is just Kojima and Guerrilla they're collaborating on this engine and really polishing it and improving it, and now they've given it a proper name, which is Decima. And they talked a lot about that engine that came about with Kojima agreeing to make his next game PlayStation exclusive, and then him and Mark Cerny going on their Fun World tour, which if a lot of people have
the
seen
ride or die Mark Cerny tour.
Yeah, seen on social media where they went to literally, I think, just every single first-party Sony interactive entertainment studio, and what they were doing is searching for an engine,
right?
An engine and a collaborator for Kojima to partner with.
I thought the fact that Guerrilla presented the source code of their engine to Kojima in like a decorative wooden box was among the coolest gestures I've ever seen.
Yeah,
just the reverence with which you have to like kneel and present this chest of your hard work to a true game design legend.
And they had I think it was the studio head of Guerrilla Games there, and he presented it he was saying just his reasoning was like, we're him, Kojima, and us, we're just game creators, and we just want to share that. We just want to share the tools of game creation. And, it wasn't necessarily about, hey, if he, ensuring that he would become their partner or whatever. It was just, here, just a token of goodwill. Like,
and that's,
see what you can do. If you use it, cool, not whatever.
I'm sure that helps seal the deal to some extent.
Yeah.
Of course, I think Kojima probably gets whatever he asks for. So.
That's true. The name Decima is symbolic. They went over that. It is named after a goddess of childbirth. But also the Japanese pronunciation, which would be Dejima, is a real island that has ties to both Japanese and Dutch history, and Guerrilla Games is Dutch. The slide that they showed was in old Western documents, Latinized as Decima. The Dejima was a small fan-shaped artificial island built in the Bay of Nagasaki in 1634 by local merchants. Dejima was built to constrain foreign traders as part of the self-imposed isolationist policy. Originally built to house Portuguese traders, it was used by the Dutch as a trading post. And so you had that Japanese and Dutch exchange there, and so now this engine is symbolic of
how insanely
Kojima loves his symbolism.
Oh my god,
he loves his symbolism.
Has there ever been a more symbolic engine name? Just such an innocuous thing to load so much lore and intrigue into. That's just crazy.
So the two studios now are collaborating with that engine,
sharing updates.
Sharing updates, going back and forth with its Kojima Productions, for example, has improved the lighting in the engine for their own purposes.
Which is cool.
Death Stranding.
Super cool. I hope that benefits Horizon as well.
Yep, and now we have within Guerrilla Games a little sort of small team that's Kojima Productions Amsterdam that's going to be doing a lot of the tech side.
That's so cool. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it only benefits the final product of Death Stranding. You know, the one thing that, when I think about this game, that's still probably multiple years. I mean, we're talking 2018, 2019. Like, I want it to have as smooth of development as possible, in the sense that, coming from the Konami hellfire that he seems to have come from, like, I think nothing would be better for Kojima than just having the support, having the manpower. Like, great, we have an engineering team, and all they're doing is making sure the engine is up to snuff. And we have our narrative team, and we're all working really cohesively, have a great relationship. Like, I just want it to be firing on all cylinders to ultimately make the best game possible.
Absolutely.
And I feel like sitting in-house with the Guerrilla guys, learning from them, is the best way to do it.
Right,
it's
right.
Awesome.
And then the final panel of the day was for the biggest announcement, arguably, The Last of Us Part 2.
Which we didn't even really talk about much from the show. I mean, ending, like, you want to talk about mic drop moments, coming up and seeing the trailer opens at the end of the showcase, the Firefly logo on that dilapidated stop sign.
Yeah. It absolutely continues.
The crowd erupts. Just erupts.
It continues to nail that serious, and that specific tone that they had going in the original Last of Us.
And the music nails it. I mean, the song Ellie was playing on the guitar, what a really great element of the Last of Us soundtrack is how minimal it is. And in that minimalist style, it leaves gaps for you to, fill in the gaps with your mind, which helps. It's just, the whole thing feels so personal, and it feels so affecting. And it's already like The Last of Us Part 2. All right, I can tell they've already nailed it. Like, the tone is there, the atmosphere is there. You're absolutely right.
Yes, like, you can put your money down that whatever year it comes out, it's going to be a Game of the Year contender.
It's absolutely, and visually. Oh my god.
An upgraded version of the Uncharted 4 engine, which was already...
just absurdly polished.
Just one of the most beautiful games, Uncharted 4.
We'll get like this. Like, when Uncharted 4 came out, as I believe I noted in my review, I said, it is arguably, and almost easily arguable, the greatest looking game ever made. I mean, if your style is photorealism, if your style is environmental density and detail, sure, you can get right up close next to your TV and point at texture problems or aliasing or whatever. But like, in a normal, like, living room or theater environment, Uncharted 4 is among the greatest looking games ever made, certainly in this day and age with this push toward photorealism. So you're right, to go from that to the Last of Us Part 2, and as I don't know if it was a panel thing or if it came out through some PlayStation streams later, Ellie is far and away the most complex human character that any Sony team's ever rendered.
Yep, that was during
the
panel.
And it's clearly evident. It's clearly evident.
They said that during the panel. She's just the most detailed character within any of the Sony studios. You can just see that from the fidelity of the visual to the animation. It was just, it's astounding. And seeing how they, oh my god, that trailer's so well directed, and just seeing her play that guitar.
And they keep it, her face stays off screen for as long as possible to leave you guessing. I think what's going to make that so powerful, and there's a fair case to make, the graphics aren't everything when it comes to games, but with something like The Last of Us, when human faces, when Ellie's face can be that expressive and that detailed, it almost aids the storytelling, because what Naughty Dog can do is purposefully give, take any random cutscene, like a conversation between Ellie and Joel. Now her brow is going to flex, her mouth is going to twitch, her cheeks are going to tighten in ways that can never be done before, and
there's going to be these subtle tells that really just, you're going to look at it and she might say something and you're like, did she literally mean that? Like,
and all of that,
look at it and you'll be like, man, like, some of the performance, you'll just look at it and say, it seemed like she had a little doubt when she said this and that.
And that's why this is so powerful in games, because it has to be designed. These aren't human actors who just will occasionally make a face for no reason. Every pixel is purposeful. So when Naughty Dog has that ability to add those facial nuances like never before. You're gonna get a story with more guessing moments like that, where you're wondering what she's thinking, or you feel the doubt without her voicing the doubt, where you can tell what a character's thinking just by how they're reacting. Something that Uncharted did touch on in several cutscenes, but I have no doubt.
That reminds me of a little anecdote that they told in the Uncharted Lost Legacy panel. Was Chloe, she made her debut in Uncharted 2.
Yeah. And
there was the scene where she kind of like pushes Nate down.
Yep.
And has her like fingers crawl up his chest,
Yep.
Seductively. And that was something that came about. Claudia Black in the performance capture room, she did that, just sort of ad lib. She just like did that of her own choice. They didn't like direct her to do that, and they stopped her and they were just quiet. And she was like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And they're like, "That's good, but we don't have your fingers mapped, and we don't have the motion capture technology to capture that. So, we want to have that in the game, but that means that we have to have somebody specifically go in and animate that like finger movement and do that, and like that's going to be some of the budget." And so they had apparently like sort of a conference little discussion about that, and ultimately they ended up doing it because they thought this just aids in the storytelling and establishing the character that's Chloe. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's why I love you, Naughty Dog.
That's why we love Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
And when you extrapolate that to the length of an entire, I mean, like Uncharted 4 is like twice the length of Uncharted 2.
Yeah.
And so how many thousands upon thousands of creative decisions like that just go in there for the purpose of telling a better story? Mm-hmm. I mean, and certainly
that's such a small detail that I would have never thought that they would have to go through that sort of trouble, but they're committed to going above and beyond.
They're master craftsmen. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's almost like I think people are more excited for The Last of Us Part 2 than more Uncharted. Not surprising, granted, because The Lost Legacy is like a story expansion. Mm-hmm. But it's funny to think with how revered Uncharted is and how there was only one Last of Us installment. I do think The Last of Us Part 2 is the mic drop moment of the show, easily. Yes. As great, and that's what's crazy. As great as the Uncharted opening was, it's opened and bookended by Naughty Dog.
Naughty Dog can only really top Naughty Dog, right?
Just insane. So what else came from the panel, though?
From the panel, we found out that Ellie will be the main protagonist.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the player, you're going to be playing as her throughout the game. And that one of the core themes is going to be hate, which is sort of the mirror of the first game, which was kind of love, where Joel goes through the journey and learns to sort of open up and care for other people again. This one, and based on the dialogue that's in the trailer, there's somebody or something that Ellie wants to sort of go out and get revenge against.
Yeah.
And so the big theme on this one is going to be hate.
It's interesting. Love is common in games. Love gets touched on by games all the time.
So this one could be even darker than the previous one. You think about it.
Vengeance and how that messes with your mind, how it poisons you. Yeah, that's a super interesting take.
But as you could see by the shadow and the voice, and it's also confirmed by Troy Baker that Joel's still in there. You know, he'll still be a main.
It's funny how we never really saw his dead-on face either. I don't believe.
No,
just
we
his
just
silhouette
just
from
his
like
silhouette
behind.
and his voice.
Yeah, a little side profile.
And when they had Neil Druckmann, who's one of the directors on the original one, he was up there and he was saying like to him, The Last of Us is always about Joel and Ellie. Like they are the core of it. That he thought of maybe going with another set of characters in that world, but to him, just that was what really made the original Last of Us so special, and that he wanted to continue exploring that relationship and developing it.
So. As much as I was kind of one of those, like I was totally one of those people who I didn't know if I wanted more Last of Us because it felt like such a great standalone story, and it's so rare that something gets left alone. It comes, it says its piece, and it just goes down in history as an incredible video game. Mm-hmm. That being said, I'm on board with this because it seems so well considered by them. I mean, from everything you've been telling me about the panel and just the trailer makes it evident that they're... And Neil even said in a PlayStation blog post, like, they, for years, tried to think of a good story to tell in the Last of Us universe, and they almost gave up. Like, they didn't... But it took... Whatever that story is, he remarked that they finally found something they think is worth telling. Like, it's worth going back to the universe for... So I believe them, and I think Joel and Ellie is really... It's really the only way to do that.
Yeah, and if anyone can make a great sequel, it's Naughty Dog, you know?
Yeah, no doubt.
So, I mean, they've had some fantastic sequels.
Can you imagine if the leap from The Last of Us to Last of Us Part 2 is anything like the leap from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2?
Whew. It could very well be
on a gameplay. I mean, at a gameplay
they have so
level,
much more powerful.
Oh, right,
power at their fingertips.
And it's not like The Last of Us had flawless gameplay. Like, I would argue the gameplay was, granted, great, but probably the weakest part of the package when you look at the story and atmosphere and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's room to improve for sure. Yeah, which is really exciting.
But yeah, back to what you were saying about the story. You know, the title, and we discussed this even before the panel, curiously, it is not just Last of Us 2 or Last of Us, some subtitle or a play on, like, just the name The Last of Us. It is Part 2. In the panel, Druckmann said that that's sort of a reflection of continuing the Joel and Ellie story, that it's a continuation of their journey and sort of viewed as, like, this is a companion piece to the first one.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that puts, I think, a lot of faith in people.
It makes me feel confident as a fan. Like, again, it just goes back to that theme of it seems like the game is being treated with the care it deserves. You know, it isn't just, hey, this is a really cool exclusive, we should make another one. It seems like it doesn't feel like Sony asked Naughty Dog to give us a Last of Us sequel. I don't think that happened. No,
I don't think there was a ton of, like, pressure or anything.
Right.
And it sounds like the story is something great. The basic premise was, I think, a year or two, like 2 years ago, they said, presented to the actors, Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson. And Ashley said that she's just, like, read it. She's just like in tears. She's like, no, like, you can't keep, like, putting Ellie through this. This is gonna be, like, this is great, but, like, oh my gosh. And so the funny thing is, throughout this panel, whenever the questions about the story came up, like, you could tell that Druckmann or Ashley were just, like, being very cautious on not spoiling too much.
Did anything about the story get asked? Like, anything, like, where, like, what the setting is, like, anything like that? I mean, I feel like the spoilers wouldn't even be a worry. Nothing terribly
specific, but I think just like Andy McNamara, who was the moderator from Game Informer, kind of, like, poked at just, like, sort of general questions about, like, the story, because people, like you said, thought the original sort of just ended it well, and it was, like, a standalone thing. So why continue? Like,
why answer questions that didn't need to be answered to some extent, right? That's what you got to be careful of. So, I hope that I have faith. I mean, Neil Druckmann has proven himself to be one of gaming's best writers and best directors, and someone who really cares deeply about his characters.
One question was, it was in regards to those touchstone moments from the original Last of Us. So stuff like, you had the giraffe moment, very famous moment. You had the villain played by Nolan North.
Yep, Bill,
and the question sort of was like, are you going to have those kind of moments? And Druckmann, he said, like, if it happens, it will, but, like, we're not looking at it as a formula. We're not going back and looking at the first Last of Us and saying, we need a giraffe moment. We need a villain like that. Yeah. No, if it happens, it's only to serve the story.
Right. We're not looking at, like, okay, hour 8.
Right.
Joel and Ellie need to be separated.
Exactly.
And she needs to go here and do this.
Or another moment where in the original game you switch the character that you play. Yeah. That they don't necessarily are going through and having a checklist of that. That they are just here to make a new story. And so he said, like, yeah, that is always the hardest part. A very, very common trap that a lot of people fall into when they're making sequels is to, like, oh, we gotta hit those check marks, that we're gonna fall back on sort of the sort of, I wouldn't say like nostalgia, but just like familiar structure and
that ground,
and stuff like that.
It almost sounds. I mean, it sounds like a book writing strategy or a movie writing strategy, where it's like like the gameplay will come. I have no doubt about that, and I'm sure they already are working on new systems. But this probably gives me more confidence than anything, hearing that they put story first, and everything about the game is in service to the story. It's not pre-engineered, doesn't follow a formula.
Right.
They needed to find something that was worth bringing Joel and Ellie back. Like plumb the depths of those characters and find something that we need to know about. And it wasn't until they found that they decided to make the sequel.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that gives me faith that it's not going to be like overly familiar, or you're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I hope there's a lot of surprises. Yeah.
I mean, the whole panel lineup was just, back to back. It just seemed like a great roundup of game makers, game creatives. Kojima showed up. Unfortunate that you didn't get that autograph with him after the panel.
Right. But I mean, it was just
alas.
awesome to hear more about that. Oh yeah, and then when you were speaking earlier about the music, original composer from the Last of Us original game, the first game. Let me find his name.
You gonna try to pronounce that last name?
I will try here.
I always feel like if I read it the way it's spelled, that sounds too like
Gustavo Santaolalla. Laya. Because it's
Laya. Oh,
yeah.
Santaolalla. That makes
sense. So
yeah,
you heard during that trailer that was a new piece that he composed.
Sure.
Which also featured a little, like, kind of a arrangement of the Last of Us original theme, and then they ended the panel playing a new track by him, which
really?
Sounds great.
Oh yeah.
That guy's music is awesome, and then they showed some of the concept art, which you can see on our Twitter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's a good point. For a full panel recap, you did an awesome job live tweeting that stuff, so hit up at psu.com, all spelled out.
Yeah.
DOTCOM.
Got all, like, the main points. And
yeah, exactly.
People just fun facts and some really, like, major info. That's surprising about these panels is I thought...
they'll be just like more like marketing, like retread. Hey, let's watch that trailer again.
Yeah, and they did a little bit of that where they did sometimes replay some snippets of the trailer, but there was a lot of fleshing out and answering actual questions that are on people's minds.
Absolutely, it's almost like they use that as a chance to, and again, this comes back to why the showcase was so great. They use these panels as a chance to flesh out those games rather than use precious minutes of the show to explain it verbally to you,
Right.
Like, let's not talk about Uncharted. Let's just show it, and then you'll read about it later on PlayStation Blog. Let's do more trailers, more footage, more gameplay.
Yeah, and so
and really kept it rolling.
Right.
Yeah, the panel lineup was great, and that took us about halfway through day one, and then we ended up playing a bunch of stuff. So, I while you were checking out the panels, I played several titles. Mm-hmm. I think the first game I played here at PSX, Crash Bandicoot. Very appropriately. I rushed right over to Crash, got my hands on time with that. Mm-hmm. The demo included level 1 of Crash 1 and Sanity Beach, and another level from the first game that's definitely comes later. It's on the last island called Heavy Machinery. It's in like a factory. It's got robots and everything like that. So yeah, I got to go hands on with that graphical style. I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the show. It feels a little sluggish, probably because of just the HDTV calibration errors.
I guess a question I have is, did any of the gameplay mechanics or sort of how the camera or the scenes displayed feel dated to you?
Well, I mean, it's very accurate to the original games. Like, there's no, Crash has the same very limited moveset. He doesn't have like the
You got a fixed camera, of course.
Fixed camera. He doesn't have the ground slide that he gets in even like Crash 2 or 3, like in the first game. It's just he's got his jump, his spin, that's it. And the level layout, placement of crates, as best I could tell, all of that was identical in the 2 levels I played from the original game.
Like the distances of things.
Yeah, distances, like relative proportions. I felt like the camera was pulled in a bit more on him than in the original games. It just felt like Crash himself took up more of the screen, and I almost felt like I wanted to zoom out slightly. It could be like rose-tinted glasses, and maybe the original games were like that.
Yeah, right.
But it's just like this world, these new levels are so like, so vibrant and so richly detailed that I almost want to see more of that. So zoom it out a bit. But yeah, and it's weird too because the original game, at least Crash 1, didn't have analog support. You could only play it with the D-pad.
Huh.
And despite the fact that this game does allow analog control, I still found myself using the D-pad because I just like that's how I played Crash 1 back in the day.
A little muscle memory kicking in.
Yeah, which admittedly probably didn't help like my accuracy because it's just like I never use the D-pad anymore, so it always feels so stiff and sluggish. But nevertheless, I'm absurdly excited. What's going to be cool about that game is that even like veterans like myself who've played through them all multiple times, every single level of the new game is going to give you something cool and new to look at because every single one is remade from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like, it's never going to just be like an up-res or a remaster where you're just playing the same content and it looks slightly better. This is just straight. It's familiar, but it's brand new, which is a cool thing.
Very cool.
Yeah. I also played Nex Machina, the new game from Housemarque, which I haven't seen details on that, but I'm wondering if that is now like what used to be called Matterfall, because they were working on a game called Matterfall announced a year or two ago, and that just dropped off the face of the earth.
I vaguely remember that one.
And now it's Nex Machina. Regardless, it's crazy how much it reminded me of both Resogun and Super Stardust, and yet it's like a
Geometry
top-down.
Wars and that.
Absolutely.
Games,
but it's top down, like. Not even isometric, it's like directly top down, twin stick shooter like Dead Nation or something like that. But gameplay is super simple, easy to pick up, incredibly difficult to master. You're kind of like this like sci-fi soldier, almost like a Mega Man kind of guy, because he has something kind of like a blaster arm. What was cool about it, besides, you've got dash moves, and I mean, this is going to be old hat for anyone who's played Stardust or Resogun. You've got your dash to break through enemy flanks, staying protected. You are trying to save humans, like in Resogun, that helps boost your score multiplier. There were some cool moments where the camera did some creative things, like rather than being top-down, the path up to the boss, it like suddenly pulled in and was almost like an over-the-shoulder view. Still twin stick, like I was still like kind of doing this and this, but it just a little cinematic flair, like kind of just reminds you that there's actually like a war happening down there.
Yeah, ups the intensity of the moment.
Yeah, it was a cool moment for sure. So what did you play first after the panels? Was it Devolver Digital, the Devolver publishing tent we hit up? Yeah,
I think that was.
So we checked out both Strafe, which is an homage to the Quake, the Unreal Tournament of Days Past.
Yeah, Quake, Unreal Tournament, Doom. Really fast paced.
Really fast paced. Really fast paced.
There's not much reloading. You're just going around. Just zooming around at an ungodly speed and just shooting. Hordes
of enemies to mow down. What's interesting about the game, and I think something that will appeal to players of the old games, is that, and I loved the way the guy there with us, one of the game's developers, Tom, was describing this. It's procedurally generated, but the campaign is procedurally generated. It's not like a roguelike where you're just diving in for a random level every time. There is a story, there are missions and areas, but those spots look different every single time. So you get that thrill of like going through something and like mastering the mechanics, mastering the super fast aiming and movement, but you can still replay it over and over again and get a different experience.
Yeah, you're not going to be stuck and like, oh yeah, the same old map again.
Exactly. So which should add some fresh surprises.
Absolver, I also got a chance to go hands-on with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a game that at E3, Adam Byrne of our site as well, he really, really enjoyed.
Yeah,
he was
raved
enamored
about
with
that.
Absolver.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it as well. I mean, you get a sense of it from the showcase trailer, where we see, the camera's really pulled in. It's kind of this. It reminds me of what was the.
It's kind of like a fighting game.
I'm thinking of Jade Empire. Remember Jade Empire?
By BioWare?
Yes.
Yep.
To some extent, the combat sort of mimics Jade Empire a little bit, but it is very pulled in. It's a very tactile, like, kung fu fighter, martial arts fighter, more accurate. But, it's got that multiplayer focus, too, which I thought was interesting. I ended up playing a 1v1 PvP match with somebody, and it's funny how I'm absolutely awful at fighting games. Like, I probably could be okay with them if I put any decent amount of time into it. But with Absolver, I just got it, you know? It was weird. Like, you can customize the moves in your combo kit by just going to a menu and say, okay, I want my first button press to be this punch. I want my second press to be this underhanded kick or this uppercut punch. And you can save these different stances and then just kind of flip between them in the heat of combat. So it's an interesting system. It seemed like it had a lot of sort of hidden depth that you wouldn't be able to get your hands around quickly. And yet, going into battle with somebody, I just kind of got it. I was like, I know how to dodge, and the characters move slowly enough that you can, like, if you're on it and if you're paying attention, you can catch those telegraphed moves.
Yeah.
Which is great.
You don't have to be like counting frames like in like Street
No,
Fighter or anything like that.
Yeah, it's like the exact opposite of that. So it's a measured pace. It's definitely a really interesting aesthetic. Like, visually, it looks really cool. So it's definitely one to watch for.
Yeah.
What else though? Give me something else you played.
Man, I didn't get to play that much today.
Oh, you gotta go back.
I feel like
That's what tomorrow's all
yeah.
about.
Well, Resident Evil.
Yeah, that's true. So you, of course,
We
weren't a huge fan of Resident Evil.
Yeah,
but it's not your kind of game, so
right. I would say I think I prefer the older ones a little bit more.
What's the tank? Come on.
But this one also feels oddly the way your camera moves also feels a little stiff too.
Really?
I feel like it's not as when you're moving the right analog stick. I feel like it's not as smooth as some other first person games.
I wonder. Yeah, I
wonder if that's on purpose.
Well, it's interesting because you played it in VR and I played it with standard controls, and even in standard controls, I think I kind of know what you mean. Where it's
yeah,
like,
and I watched.
Goes,
I saw that when you were
whoosh,
playing also,
sort of
and I was like, yeah, it's not quite as smooth as I'd like it to be.
I wonder if the flashlight has something to do with that. Like the flashlight almost seemed to like lag behind you a little bit. And then
right, there's a little bit of a sway.
Yeah. Well, I played a indie game that only showed up very briefly in the show called Vane. In Vane, you see the bird. It lands on a like a weather vane out in the desert. Very mysterious. I mean, literally, they only showed a few seconds of it. The story with Vane is that you got to think something like Abzu or Journey, where it is like a free floating. Explore. I don't even say exploration. It's just you go in a direction and you just take in the sights, take in the feeling, and for much of it, you control this bird, and you have free form flight. You can flap wings to speed up, gain altitude, lower altitude, and I just found it to be very relaxing. It was very it was an interesting way to like sort of chill and veg after the showcase. Game still got a long way to go. It felt very, very alpha to me, pretty glitchy, some visual craziness going on. But if you enjoyed Abzu, if you enjoyed Journey, Vane is like totally in that spirit. The perfect game to just sort of just soak it in. You know, go in, don't think just about
mellow
much.
Out.
Yeah, exactly. I played a bunch of other stuff, but I know we want to save some of that for our previews. Like I played What Remains of Edith Finch, just a short segment of that.
Oh, cool.
That was actually a fun conversation. I got to talk to one of I feel bad if I mistook him, but one of Giant Sparrow's programmers. And the thing it was tough for me because I wanted to ask, what happened with Sony, like this deal fell through, and I kind of like mentioned that in our conversation. I was like, so I know that you had the Unfinished Swan, and it was in the headlines that Giant Sparrow inks this deal with Sony, and now that's not the case anymore. And he kind of like smiled and just sort of like nodded, like didn't have much to say on that.
Kind of just like, play it safe, don't want to get in trouble with PR.
Yeah, basically. But where they're coming from with Edith Finch, I think what's problematic about this game is that, and he gave me an interesting history lesson here, was that they started development on their game, and 6 months later, Gone Home was announced. And they're like, shit, here's a walking simulator where you play as a 19-year-old girl exploring her family's home, learning more about her family, and What Remains of Edith Finch, I'm not sure if you know much about it, is like entirely that. Like, you are a 17-year-old girl, Edith Finch, who goes and explores this mansion that's been lived in by so many members of her family dating back hundreds of years. And room by room, you explore these sort of story vignettes about them. What's charming and experimental about the game, I think what differentiates it from other walking simulators, is that every room plays host to a different gameplay mechanic. It's weird, like,
so it's like experimenting and just mixing.
It is a little bit, and it adds like a fun twist because the game is about death. Like every family member preceding Edith is dead. She is the only Finch family member left alive.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the genesis of her quest. She wants to explore this house where one of her, like her great grandmother, like locked up all these secrets, and just find out like who is she, where does she come from. But she'll go into like a child's bedroom, like a cousin of hers or something. Mm-hmm. And by opening up a storybook or a diary, she suddenly gets transported. And you, the player, are now like in first person controlling this boy on a swing. And the left stick controls his left leg, and the right stick controls his right leg.
Oh, weird.
And it doesn't tell you this, but I started to figure out after a while. I was like, okay, I can see things happening. And you swing, you get mastery of the mechanic, you swing higher and higher, and all of a sudden, you're flying. You're like, he just takes off, and he's just a bird, and you're just flying. So,
what?
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's got surreal elements.
Oh, man.
It's... but what's... one thing he stressed was that's the idea, that's at least one of the ideas of the game, is to give a place where you, the player, can just think about the idea of death, confront the idea of death with something that's not quite so serious. It doesn't take itself as seriously as something like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. And through this series of vignettes, you can play around with imagination, just these really surreal scenarios. Whether they're actually real or not is, kind of up to player interpretation, but it's interesting. I guess I'm looking forward to just kind of with Gone Home, like I'm looking forward to learning like what's hidden in this house and like what there is to discover. So anyway, he had good things to say about why it's taken them so long, and I was like, this game, I think most people expected this to come out like 2 years ago. He's like, yeah, so did we.
Yeah, it does feel like that game's been dealing with for quite a while. So.
But yeah, I don't know. That's my shtick. I've lately enjoyed games like that. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, Firewatch, Dear Esther, stuff like that.
Yeah.
A few other things. I did play Gran Turismo Sport in PlayStation VR.
How was that?
Really cool.
Yeah.
It strikes me as a lot more enjoyable than Drive Club.
Okay.
I'm definitely in that camp of people that says, at its release, Drive Club, it's just simply not a very pretty game, even in VR. And I get it, VR is not,
right.
You can give it a pass most times, but I just didn't enjoy. I enjoyed my demo of Drive Club a long time ago. I didn't particularly enjoy the actual release of it, though, on PlayStation VR. But what I think Polyphony has done with Gran Turismo is just, it doesn't look as good as Gran Turismo, obviously, because it's in VR. But there's just enough of, like, that Polyphony crispness and, like, just streamlined color where you do still feel like you're in a high fidelity game, and you're able to get a little more immersed because of it. Of course, the caveat is that, you know, most reasonable people won't be able to build like the custom car with like the wheels and pedals that I was able to use. But when it all came together, it worked really well, and I love driving games in VR because you can actually like take a little bit of your real world driving instinct and apply it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. You can check your mirrors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know,
when you're approaching a turn, like you can just kind of instinctively think, I should slow down now versus up there because it's just coming up on me, you know. Yeah, so that was a great time. A little bit of Parappa. Parappa is Parappa. I mean,
yeah,
it plays. They have introduced. I don't know if haptic is the right word, but a sort of feedback in the controller. Like the original Parappa didn't have any of that, but in this version, it's hard to describe. I guess it kind of pulses to the tune of the beat. So like that string of the symbols appear on top.
Yeah,
they run through, and then you're supposed to repeat it, like Simon says. The controller, the DualShock, pulses a bit with each tune, so it just reinforces like, okay,
dun,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, dun 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 dun, like, and you feel it too, so it just kind of eases the learning curve a little bit, just sort of helps
because that game can be hard to get like a really good score on.
Man, I was feeling the pressure.
I've played, that game, and I've played a good number of rhythm games, and that one can be quite challenging.
That is strict,
times.
man. They're down to like
they're strict. Yeah,
they're down to like the individual frame on whether you got that timing or not.
Yeah,
and it sounds so bad when you mess it up because he'll just like not sing.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
or
just stutter or something. Yeah,
he'll miss words entirely. And I played Neo, which is coming out fairly soon.
February, I think.
Is that quickly?
Is it?
It could be.
It's Q1. I know. That's the Koei Tecmo Team Ninja game, which is the action RPG.
Yes,
yeah.
It is, and it's coming. Feb 9, February 9th. It is the Dark Souls of feudal Japan, or rather, I should say, it's the Bloodborne of feudal Japan. I love that. You guys, if you're hearing explosions on the podcast right now, you're hearing
like thunder rumbling or something.
Yeah, you're hearing the Disneyland fireworks. Neo is the Bloodborne of feudal Japan. That's the setting, and there are a lot more weapons. I mean, you're changing your armor, your helmet, your gauntlets.
Yeah.
Fairly frequently, like most enemies drop some kind of loot. Like in the demo, there's just loot everywhere. New swords, new
quite a wide variety of weapons.
Yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
There was like a swinging. It's not a mace because it wasn't a mace on the end of it, but it's like a swinging chain with like a hook at the end.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like
kind of
ninja.
I mean.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Like ninjas you've seen.
And I was attacked by ninjas at one point, so I wonder if like ninja daggers are also a thing.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
I was surprised by how quickly I was able to pick up the battle system though, because it is a little more complicated than the Souls games. You actually have stances that you can switch between at any time. So like if I'm holding a katana or something, there's a stance where I've got the sword at my hip and I'm just ready and waiting to, whip it out for a forward slash. Another stance where you hold it high above your head. Every swing has more offensive power because the idea is that you're putting your whole body into it. Or you have a stance where it's down on your other hip, and that just changes the attacks you do. So the flow of combat basically means not only are you having to do quick dodges and blocks like any kind of Souls game to just survive, you're also having to decide what stance you should be using at any given time. Do I want to use the sword or this mace? Do I want to use a bow? Shoot them with a musket? You can have bombs and other handheld items to help out as well. So it's hard as hell. We'll hopefully have some footage of the game up on PSU at some point soon here, whenever we can get the 4K footage encoded and uploaded. But it was a decent playthrough that I recorded, but that only came after like 6 or 7, just bashing my head against the wall just to fight like a few enemies. I mean, you'll
You like a challenge, right?
Exactly.
You'll dig this.
Yeah, scrapping and crawling for every inch. So that's a lot of what I played today. Saw some other stuff. I think definitely stay tuned to PSU.com for everything we'll be writing and covering in the days to come.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot still to talk about at PSX. You know, you and I are going to be hitting the keyboard shortly after this to make sure everyone's caught up on all the news of the show, the trailers, screenshots, everything that happened. But if you're anything like me, Ernest, you're feeling really good right now about the current state and the future state of PlayStation.
Yeah.
If nothing else, this show has just been a real reminder of how cool it is to be a part of this ecosystem sometimes, and just how great these games are, how great this community is, these fans.
It's just an awesome player base, and just there's all these games that now you can look forward to, and you're like, man, I am glad that I picked up a PS4. So
give me the 3 titles of 2017 you're most excited for.
2017. Looking forward.
Crash, Ys Origin, and Danganronpa. No,
I in no particular order, I would put Danganronpa V3 there, in some capacity. What else comes out next year?
Horizon, Persona, Mass Effect.
Right, Mass Effect.
Where do you even begin?
Oh my gosh.
There's there's multiple sides to this.
Right.
It's really hard to choose.
It's hard.
I think, and then there's later in the year too. Although, you would, Uncharted is definitely 2017. I think I saw that.
Yeah.
I'll double check while you're while you're stewing on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some games that we just don't know that will necessarily be coming out next year.
Yeah, stuff that we simply just...
Yeah, that's been in development for a while, but they just have not said anything about release date because they don't want to promise something and then not be able to.
No doubt, yeah. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy is confirmed for 2017.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
For me, I think Ni no Kuni.
Oh, okay. Ni no Kuni.
Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom.
Yeah.
In no particular order again, because Persona 5 would be the number one. And then, gosh, it's so hard because at this point we're talking Mass Effect, we're talking the Crash Bandicoot trilogy. I mean, just things that I'm really excited to play. Uncharted. God, it feels so weird to say Uncharted. I mean, they kept telling us like this was it, this was the end. And
but
of
now
course,
it's like we got this cool,
story chapter,
story expansion. Yeah.
Of course, this will be the end for quite some time. We have to assume, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. There's just, there's so many games already this year where I'm gonna be just catching up on.
Man, I only managed to squeeze in like 10 hours of Final Fantasy this week.
I'm just looking through the list real quick here. So yeah, I did say Danganronpa. I guess Gravity Rush 2 is next year.
Yeah, that looks great. I love the look of that DLC.
Yeah, so
it's always got such a great art style.
I think I'd put it up there. Looking through here quick.
You love your Persona.
Yeah, I think I'll just throw Persona in there. Why
it's an
not?
easy one, right?
Yeah, because there's.
Are you thinking of doing like a photo tour of the show tomorrow, like a full gallery of a bunch of stuff, or did you snap a bunch of shots today?
Snapped a little bit. I probably could do a little more.
Yeah,
just to fill it up, and for those of you at home,
I'll give you a bit more to think. So basically, like, this is end of day one of PSX 2016. We're here tomorrow as well, wrapping up the show. We're gonna play and see a few more things. We were fortunate enough to capture a bunch of gameplay footage today, so if you want to see footage of Crash Bandicoot at the Insane Trilogy, if you want to see footage of Neo, of Nex Machina, or of Wipeout Omega Collection, all that stuff's going to be on PSU.com in the days to come. Give us a little time. We got some 4K 60 FPS videos to upload, but we'll get to it, as well as giving you our written impressions of what we saw and played this weekend. All right, what do you got for me?
For my games?
Yes. I
think I'll just go, and it's so Japanese centric, but Gravity Rush 2, Persona 5, and what am I afraid? Danganronpa. Yeah.
All good choices.
Yeah.
It's it's hard to choose, man.
Yeah.
It's if nothing else, PSX says it's going to be a great year.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been episode 46 of PlayStation Fix. An interesting little format break for us, celebrating this PlayStation mega event with you all. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to keep an eye on our Twitter account at psu.com, DOTCOM, all spelled out. As well as on Facebook. We're posting content on both platforms, just really making sure that you're up to date on every trailer, every screenshot, every piece of news coming out of the show. Scoops and hot takes for sure.
Yeah.
The panel recaps are really great. Make sure to scroll back through our Twitter history. We're gonna pool those things together on psu.com as well, so you can catch up on exactly what was said, trailers, images, tidbits from the panels, without having to sit through and rewatch an hour's worth of content.
Right.
We'll give you the quick hits from that. What else? You got something to plug?
No, I think that's.
I did it.
Yeah,
I did a good one.
Yeah.
All right. That's always the hardest part.
You got the social medias. You got the YouTube videos.
The whole gamut, man.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
And hit us up on YouTube as well. Thanks for listening, guys. Again, episode 46 of PlayStation Fix. Please stay tuned for more episodes in the weekends to come. Take care.